Hello, everyone. Welcome into another edition of Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews. My name is Brandon Adams. We'll be joined over the course of the next few minutes by Mike Griffith, Jeff Sintel, Connor Riley, our buddy Dari Payro from R.S. Andrews, and we'll make our picks against the spread for the big games of the weekend. The format of the show is we all kind of weigh in, and we create a consensus, and then Dari Payro decides if he wants to go with the flow and join us on that consensus. Our hope is you'll play along as well with your own picks for the games for this upcoming weekend. Loaded week. We're going to pick 11 games today. We could arguably pick another one with Indiana and Penn State, but we'll leave that one off for right now. And let's get a quick update on how we did last week before we dive in and start looking at the games for this weekend. A pretty good battle for the top spot right now. Connor Riley in first place after a 3-4 week a week ago. He stands at 51-41-1 for the season. Dari did have a winning week last week, the only one of the three of us to do so. He was 4-3, but still a game behind Connor in the overall season-long standings at 50-42-1. Both very impressive records above 500. Me, an entirely different story. 3-4 for the week, 40-52-1 on the year. However, what that graphic does not show is I did go 1-0 on the season on my silver bullet lock game of the year, giving you LSU last week over the Alabama Crimson Tide. So from that standpoint, at least paid off on the game of the year. Dari, I'll welcome you into the conversation here. You feeling pretty good about the slate of games for the week?
I feel great about the games this week.
I think it's going to be a fun week of games, depending on how good I feel about them. Some better than others, I guess. But it should be a good time. Now, for Georgia, it's an intense game. On the road at Auburn. Number been about 3 at the beginning of the week, probably 2.5, maybe a little bit more prevalent here now. One way or another, the public expecting a close, tightly contested game between the Georgia Bulldogs and the Auburn Tigers. We're going to work off a 3 right now for the home team, getting 3 against Georgia. That is Auburn. Mike Griffith, how do you think that it's going to go?
Georgia is at Auburn, rivalry game, big game for Georgia. I think Georgia wins late. Rodrigo Blankenship field goal, 24-23. I'm taking the points and the Auburn Tigers at Auburn.
So Mike Griffith taking a big old wet blanket here off the top and going with Auburn there on that one. So we're off to a rip-roaring start here on Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews. Jeff Sintel, are you with Mike? Do you think the dog is live here at Jordan-Hare on Saturday? What say you?
3. I think Georgia's going to take this game by about 10 to 12 points. I like that game. I see something like a 21-7 win for Georgia, 27-type win for Georgia, that kind of game. That foreshadows a future answer on the over-under.
So Jeff takes Georgia as a 3-point favorite. However, the shirt that Jeff is wearing there would be a 3-point underdog to virtually any item of clothing you could find in any closet anywhere. But obviously I kid with Mr. Sintel. So split decision there between our two riders, Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers. They'll take Georgia, but are they confident? Yeah, a little more than I might would have thought. 79% do take the Dogs as the 3-point favorite on the road here. Connor, I have been saying it all week long. I'll say it again. I am not so sure about this game. I don't have a lot of confidence in my voice at all about this one. Can you tell me something to make me feel better about it? A little bit more assured of Georgia on the road here?
I think you're going to see a lot of field goals this week coming from both the Georgia side and the Auburn side. Look, the reality is these are two great defenses. And the biggest question I have this week is, can Jake Fromm outplay Bo Nix?
Yeah.
Fromm, he's had one stinker every year in college. In 2017, it came in this Auburn game where he and really the whole Georgia offense just sort of looked overmatched. But Bo Nix' record, I know you're going to tell me he's at home, and I know you're going to tell me
Sure.
He's a different quarterback at home on the road. But he's completing less than 50% of his passes against ranked teams, and I think there's a very good chance this is the best defense he's going to face all season. I think it's going to be a 16-12 game, 16-9, a lot of field goals. I think Georgia, there might be only one touchdown in this game. I think Georgia's going to get it. Give me Georgia here with the 3 points.
I love the way that you say it. I hope it works out that way. Let me give you some good news and some bad news. The good news is, on the one hand, Georgia has been really strong against Auburn under Kirby Smart, with the exception, obviously, of the 2017 loss in Jordan-Hare Stadium. They are 3-1 against the spread, and they have covered those games by an average of 14 points. So other than the bad loss in November 2017, other than that, Georgia under Smart has been really good against Auburn. And, of course, long-standing history of Georgia dominance in the series, but that doesn't really matter in this game. The bad news that you're probably aware of, I mentioned this on Dog Nation Daily here on this week on the Thursday program, then the 7 previous meetings with Malzahn against Kirby Smart, with Malzahn is a head coach at Auburn. Kirby's an Alabama defensive coordinator, a Georgia head coach. Malzahn has scored 34 more points in 3 of those instances. So it's not like Kirby's defensive game plan has always befuddled Malzahn. He's actually had some pretty good offensive performances here. Also, as Cole Kubelik mentioned on Twitter, and a lot of other folks have talked about this week, we even had this on Dog Nation Daily earlier than this week. Cole's got Malzahn as 8-0 coming off a bye, outscoring his opponents by from a 282 to 180 mark. And the record of those opponents that Malzahn faced coming off a bye, as you might imagine, Auburn wants to strategically use its bye, 45-40. So winning teams that Auburn's playing, they're outscoring them aggregately more than 100 points, and 8-0 on the scoreboard in terms of winning and losing. I'm not going to pick against Georgia. I'm just not going to do it. I don't want to put that out in the atmosphere. So I'm going to take Georgia with the game, and obviously for the purposes of our contest, I have to take them minus the 3. The honest truth, though, is if I was going to put my own wallet on the line, I'd probably go money line minus 140 so that I can get paid at least something on a 1-point win. Dari, I am not so sure about this game really at all. I'll take Georgia, but only because I want to put some good vibes into the universe. The flow is with the Bulldogs. Do you want to go with the flow?
Well, let me tell you, I actually love this game.
Really?
Okay, coming up throughout the season and the year, I kind of had it circled, and this was one that worries me. Or right now, I actually like this game a lot. This game is all about the line of scrimmage. Who's going to hold up the lines? Who's going to push back the lines? Auburn's front seven is elite, but Georgia's offensive line has been dominant. They've only given up 5 sacks on the season.
Yep.
That's fewest in the nation. They gave 0 to Florida last week, and Florida's ranked number 1 in the SEC in sacks. In addition, Georgia's defense has been dominant. Number 1 in the SEC, number 2 in the nation, and Nick's, even though he's having a good freshman year, in his 3 big games, Oregon, Florida, and LSU, he failed to complete 42% of his passes. Give me the team that has everything to play for, which is in front of them. I love Georgia this week. I think they rise up. I think it'll be a game flow similar to the Florida-Georgia game last week, but I love the Dogs.
Boy, that's great to hear, Dari, and a very strong case to be made for Georgia there by you. We're off and running here on Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews. And, of course, it's been cold at night the last few nights. That means in our house we've had the heat on every single one of those nights. I have a cold-natured family. With that in mind, as you're turning on your own heat, your own furnace system, is it going to keep you warm during the winter to come? Is it safe enough to make it through the cold weather season that's on its way? Well, the best way to know that's by getting the $99 furnace safety check from our friends at R.S. Andrews. They'll get your system back to factory fresh specs. It's really a mega safety check because they go over every facet of the heating system. They really give it the once-over, and they'll show up on time. They'll do the work that's promised for the price that's promised. That's what we love about R.S. Andrews. We love hanging out with Dari on our program here, but we also love recommending R.S. Andrews as well, and you can find out more online by checking out rsandrews.com. I actually feel very strongly about our next game, and I'm looking forward to hearing what other folks say as well. It is Alabama, fresh off a loss to LSU, going to Starkville, Mississippi, to take on the Mississippi State Bulldogs. We've got the Bulldogs as a 21-point road underdog here. Before I share my thoughts, Mike Griffith, why don't you start us off and give us your thoughts on Mississippi State and Alabama?
Another home underdog that I'm going to pick to cover, Alabama at Mississippi State. Mississippi State is a 21-point underdog. My score, Alabama 30, Mississippi State 10.
So on the underdog there is Mike Griffith, a little bit of an interesting start for him. Jeff Sintel, what say you?
Tide's going to get right. Somebody's got to take a hurting for all those LSU lumps. I think that will be the opponent this week. The Tide will cover that point spread.
Jeff Sintel takes the Alabama Crimson Tide. Dog Nation Daily. Listeners and viewers, are you on the Tide? Are you on the Bulldogs here? With a fairly sizable number, 66% do take Alabama. Connor Riley, Alabama coming off a loss, which is not a spot we see the Tide in a lot in the regular season. Mississippi State, maybe some reason to think they've given up on the season. One more rise up here for Joe Moorhead. What do you have in mind?
You know, I love a good home dog.
I've heard you say that.
And Mississippi State this week literally is a home dog. They are the
literally
Bulldogs. However, hell hath no scorn, like a furious Alabama. This team's going to be mad, angry at what happened last week when they, to quote Marcus Spears, LSU, went into Bryant Denny and put up 46 points on the board.
Yeah.
21 points is a lot. I don't care. Alabama all day.
Yeah, this is actually the game that I like probably the best of anything on the board this week for a very simple reason. Y'all have heard me last week go against Alabama as a narrow favorite, and I explained why I thought that was a good bet, and I won with that. You heard me earlier in the year go against Alabama as a huge favorite, 30-plus points against Tennessee. I explained why I thought that was a good pick, and I won with that. However, this is the Alabama sweet spot. If you don't hear anything else I say on this program all day long, hear me say this. This is the 14th time since 2008 that Nick Saban's team has been favored between 21 and 24 points. Alabama is 11-2 against the spread in those previous instances. When Alabama's a 20-something point favorite, for whatever reason, they just absolutely pound their opponents. Better coach, better talent, and just playing at or above expectations every single time. That is, to me, a very, very significant trend here. I think Alabama bounces back in a big way. Dari, I know what your pick's going to be, but I'm going to take Alabama here. That puts the flow on the side of the Crimson Tide, and do you want to go with the flow?
Go with the flow. I think they'll, like all the points you guys just said, they're going to be upset, pissed off, and they're going to try to put up points in this game.
Yeah, so that's going to be a fun one to watch there. Another pretty fun one to watch is Florida going to Columbia, Missouri, to take on the Missouri Tigers after Florida really put up a big number last week against the Vanderbilt team that may have just tapped out on the season. Interesting here is that Florida has lost its last two on the field to Missouri by an average of 25 points. So Missouri has had the Gators' numbers as of late. Does that continue on Saturday? Mike? Oh, yeah, we don't have a Mike Griffith pick on this. Which one do we want to give him for this? We got to give him somebody. Who would you give him, Connor?
He would have given Florida.
I think so. So we'll give Mike Florida on this one. How about Jeff Sintel? Which way do you want to go on this?
Ooh, we hear about Missouri and how they have the great pass defense, the great red zone defense. I think Florida, a little bit perturbed, a little bit fat and happy. They showed what they could do against Vanderbilt. I think they covered that spread again in this week.
So I neglected to mention as Jeff takes the Florida Gators that they are a 7-point road favorite here. So already something's up. Only a narrow favorite on the road given how bad Missouri's been as of late. Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers, boy, I would hope so. The majority of the folks on the side of Missouri, we don't like seeing Florida win, nor do I want Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers picking the Gators. So you want to talk about a biased audience. The flow for now is on the side of Missouri, with Florida being it's on the side of
Florida.
Oh, that's right, because we gave Mike Florida there as well. So the flow on the side of Florida, but the audience takes Missouri. Connor Riley, where do you want to go on this one?
I wanted to go Missouri. I like them as a home dog. But, I picked Vanderbilt last week thinking they were going to be able to, keep it close. And it was 14-0 at halftime. And then Florida just tore through them like a chainsaw through wood. Give me Florida here. I think this team's motivated, angry. They want to prove, hey, we're still, despite what we did against Georgia, we're still pretty clearly one of the top teams in the country. Give me the Gators here.
All right, so I'm going to take Missouri, and I'll admit something here. I'm well behind in our contest, so I have to have a few more contrarian plays this week as a way of just sort of hoping I kind of get back in the game. And this is one of those where I'm comfortable making a contrarian play. As I said before, something already seems weird, the fact that Florida's only been a 7-point favorite in this game. That alone tells you that there's a little bit of a weird thing going on between these two teams. I'm comfortable taking Missouri there for that. However, a larger point here is, and I don't talk about karma a lot, but there's a certain degree of karma in play here. My guess is a good percentage of our audience was not watching the end of the Florida-Vanderbilt game last week. But let me tell you a quick story about what happened. Vanderbilt, in the midst of getting shut out, and I think it was 49-0 at the time. Vanderbilt was getting shut out 49-0, so they try a field goal. They missed the field goal. Apparently, Vanderbilt trying to get on the board against Florida somehow must have angered Dan Mullen. So then going down to the wire, clock ticking, he's calling timeouts, trying to, and it was backup players, I'll admit that, but he's calling timeouts, trying to get the Gators to punch in one more touchdown. They do end up running up the score on Vanderbilt to the tune of 56-0, calling timeouts late to do so. That is a totally classless move. I think that Florida gets its payback this week. I'm going to say I certainly would love for it to be an outright Missouri win. Let me stop short of just saying that and saying plus the points. I'll take the Missouri Tigers here. So the flow is on the side of Florida, but I'm on Missouri. Dari, do you want to go with the flow and take the Gators?
Go with the flow and take the Gators. Missouri's been undefeated at home, winless on the road, but that changes this weekend. The Gators are going to steamroll them. I think they continue. Gators are going to cover.
Does it scare you that the number just seems lower than you think it should be, just given how we think Florida has played and how Missouri hasn't played, Dari?
No. I mean, the number's there because they struggled with Missouri. Missouri's really good at home. That's why it's dropped down. I just think Missouri is on the verge of breaking and giving up for the season. So.
Yeah, you may be right about that. Although the thought is Kelly Bryant's going to come back and play this week, so maybe that's a feather in my cap, or at least a point on my side for what Missouri might be able to do. Let's go to another team. Well, there are a lot of these this time of year that may have completely given up on the season. It is Vanderbilt. And I think this is a really weird game. Vanderbilt hosts Kentucky. Commodores catching 9.5 here right now. I'm curious to see what people do here on this one. Connor, you and Dari included. Let me start with Mike Griffith on this. Kentucky going on the road to Vanderbilt after losing last week at home to Tennessee in a game I thought the Wildcats would win. Let's start us off, Mike Griffith. What do you think?
Another home underdog I'm going to take to cover Kentucky is at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, a 9.5-point underdog. I think Kentucky coming off that loss to Tennessee, their dappers down, but they beat Vanderbilt 20-17. Take Vanderbilt 9.5 points.
So Mike goes with the home dog there. He takes the Vanderbilt Commodores. Jeff Sintel, how about you?
Okay, first of all you good people out there, if you know exactly what's going to happen with this game, more power to you. Maybe you need to ride down with us to the Auburn game this weekend. I'm going to say Kentucky gets it done, and they cover that game, and they cover that 9.5-point spread.
Jeff on the side of the Kentucky Wildcats, split decision again between the two scribes, Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers. I have no idea what they're going to say about this. Yes, 71% do take Kentucky there. Connor, this game is not as easy to pick as people think. I'm just going to say that off the top here, and I'm curious to get your opinion.
Vanderbilt stinks, Kentucky.
There you go. So this is another one of those where I need to be a little contrarian this week to kind of get back in the action, but I actually think there's a play to be made here for Vanderbilt here in this game. First of all, last 3 years, Kentucky just 1-2 against the spread as a road favorite. Vandy has not been very good as a home dog, I'll admit that. The win versus Missouri snapped a streak of 7 straight instances of not covering the spread at home as a home underdog. But pay very close attention to something. If you look at the Kentucky schedule over the course of the last however many games you want to go back, what do you point to about the Kentucky schedule that says they've been any better than Vanderbilt's been? I mean, last week's a game you're supposed to win in your own stadium. They did not do that. They did play Tennessee close. Other than that, though, Kentucky and Vanderbilt have been pretty similar. They've both beaten Missouri. They've both lost badly to everybody else for a number of weeks. So this is obviously, to me, not an easy game to pick, but when you're talking about a number like 9.5, I'm going to take it here. And I don't think that's bad value on Vanderbilt because I'm not quite so sure that Kentucky right now is all that much better than Vanderbilt. So plus the 9.5 points, I'll take the Commodores. The flow, though, is on the side of Kentucky, though, right? I don't know why this is so hard for me to keep up with today, but it is. So the flow is on the side of Kentucky. Dari, do you want to go with the flow?
Yeah, I'm going with the flow. I'm going to take Kentucky. I actually watched part of that Florida-Vandy game last week, and there was no effort from Vandy. That team is completely given up. I actually think this may be the end of Derek Mason in Vandy.
Man.
Kentucky's going to run the ball. They're going to control the clock. I think they're going to easily cover this game. And guess what? Kentucky's in the clear even if they lose this game. # Evansville. The basketball team takes the biggest loss this week.
That is well done, Dari. That's exactly right. So they don't get a whole lot of pressure one way or another because what the Purple Aces did to the Wildcats a little bit earlier. It's our Go With The Flow presented by R.S. Andrews. Of course, Dari, you hear him joking around there. We always love our friends at R.S. Andrews because they like having a good time, and they like being a part of the college football conversation we have here around Dog Nation each and every week because, it kind of goes along with the business model that R.S. Andrews has followed for a long time. Story after story, they've delivered smiles. And they can deliver a smile for you as well. But you've got to reach out to them online at rsandrews.com for an air, heating, plumbing, or electric need. They'll take good care of you, but it's online at rsandrews.com. All right, let's turn to another kind of interesting game out of the SEC here for a moment. LSU, fresh off the biggest win that anyone's had this season, winning at Alabama, goes on the road to Ole Miss. Oxford, Mississippi for the game known as the Magnolia Bowl. Tigers a 21.5-point favorite on the road. Mike Griffith, once again, you can start us off.
Yet another home underdog. This is 4 in a row. I'm going to say take the points for Ole Miss. I like Ole Miss to give LSU a much, much, much better game than anybody expects because Ole Miss can run the football. And Auburn could run the football. They gave LSU trouble. I've got LSU winning this one 31-27, an upset alert game that LSU pulls out but doesn't come close to covering the 21.5-point spread.
So Mike essentially gives you the Gettysburg Address there, but he does take the underdog. Lots of underdogs for Mike Griffith thus far here today. Jeff Sintel, how about you? You on the side of the Tigers?
John Rice Plum is going to run around a lot. LSU's defense is going to give up some points and some yards, but I still see the Tigers covering that spread. The number one team in the nation is going to look like it.
So a split decision once again as Jeff goes LSU. Dog Nation Daily, listeners and viewers. Is it LSU? Is it Ole Miss here? 69% do take LSU on the Grove. So the flow on the side of the Tigers right now off the biggest win of the year. Connor Riley, where you want to go on this game?
I came into this week thinking easy Ole Miss pick. John Rice Plumlee's good.
Yeah.
Ole Miss can run the football. Huge letdown game for the Tigers. Go Tigers. But do you know where LSU ranks in the country in passing offense?
I'm sure it's very, very high.
It is second.
Yeah.
Do you know where Ole Miss ranks in passing defense?
I'm imagining it might not be so great.
117th.
Yeah.
Because of that reason, give me Ole Miss. Go Tigers. Roll Tide what?
There you go. And by the way, that's going to live on forever from Edwards Run. So this is another instance for me where because of the game, I'm behooved to take Ole Miss, and I'm going to. Now, let me first of all tell you why I shouldn't take Ole Miss. LSU 3-0 this year so far as a road favorite against the spread. Last year, very similar point spread, 22.5. Ole Miss was catching at home. They lost to Alabama 62-7. So this is not exactly a team that's made big stands there at Vaught Hemingway Stadium when it comes to being a 20-point underdog. However, also I guess one more thing to point out here, LSU 3-1 as a 20-plus point favorite thus far against the spread. The only game in which they didn't cover was like a 50-plus number against Northwestern State. LSU was 0-2 as a road favorite last year, if that matters. Here is what I'm going to hang my hat on. Ole Miss, I'm going deep for this one, but just hear me out on this. Ole Miss is 32nd in the country, according to Football Outsiders, in percentage of drives resulting in at least one first down. They've done so on 77% of their offensive drives. Connor's right. LSU's passing offense is great. Ole Miss is not very good. There's a reason why Ole Miss is a big underdog in its own stadium, and what we typically think of as kind of a rivalry situation, being the Magnolia Bowl and whatnot. So obviously Ole Miss is in some real trouble here, but move the chains a little bit here and there, let the clock run, and you got a chance to keep this one within the 21.5, especially since LSU might be a little sleepy here, coming off of what was one of the most dramatic wins the program has ever had. It's a reach, I won't deny that, but you know what? They call it gambling for a reason. So give me the Rebels in the Magnolia Bowl, and that puts the flow still on the side of LSU. Dar, you want to go with the flow?
I am going to go with the flow and take the Tigers. I think LSU is going to cover this game. Who did Connor take on this one? Did he take LSU or Ole Miss?
He took LSU. He did. He almost took Ole Miss, but he took LSU.
Okay. Ole Miss is hoping for, the hangover effect, the letdown game. They're going to want to pound the rock, control the clock, score early, try to keep it close. However, they're ranked dead last in the SEC in passing defense. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
Checkmate. Game over. Tigers roll.
So I do think it's very interesting. On 3 of our picks here today, where I kind of had a feeling where y'all might go, I've been able to make what I think is a convincing case for a contrarian play. Our standings next week are going to look very, very interesting. I'm either going to be, below the ground in last place, or all of a sudden we may have a little bit of a battle moving towards the end of the season.
To be sure, you are already below the ground in last place. Even if Brandon goes 11-0 on picks this week, he will still be under 500.
Talk it up, Hotshot. Let's see how some of these games here work out. Now, a little bit more of a more straightforward play for me in our next game. It is in College Station, Texas. Kyle Field playing host to the South Carolina Gamecocks. This, I believe, is a trophy game. I believe they play for some sort of trophy. Davy Crockett or something. Am I making that up? I may need to Google that. But the Aggies host the Gamecocks as 11-point favorites. Mike Griffith, start us off.
Texas A&M is at home. I've got them covering over a South Carolina team coming off a loss against Appalachian State. They look dead man walking to me. Give me Texas A&M 31-17 over South Carolina.
So Mike took the I didn't hear what he said. He took the Texas A&M Aggies. I was too worried about the trophy for A&M in South Carolina. Jeff Sintel, how about you?
This is the South Carolina team, which lost to Appalachian State. I know a lot of people will look at that line and think that that's fat and happy. I just don't think the Gamecocks can deal with Kellen Mond, that offense, and Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M covers that spread.
He's also on the side of the Texas A&M Aggies. Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers, a little respect left over from the Gamecocks after the straight-up win. Nope. By a 3-1 margin, they take Texas A&M here in this spot. So Connor Riley, thus far, it is a clean sweep for Texas A&M. Is this game as easy to pick for you as it has seemingly been for everyone else?
Yep, this South Carolina team is dead. They lost to App State last week. They've got Clemson on the horizon. Whereas this Aggies team, I know you love to talk about, hey, this is a good team. They got a tough game at Georgia next week. They're going to, start to look impressive because they got some big games going up. And they kind of know that if they don't win this game, they might not win a game the rest of the year. So give me the Aggies to cover here.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of mock me for what I've been saying about Texas A&M, but the truth is I do think quietly against a very difficult schedule, Jimbo Fisher's actually doing a really good job at Texas A&M. Let me give you a reason why. As a double-digit home favorite in his A&M career thus far, which obviously dates back to the 2018 season, Jimbo's 7-0 against the spread. So when he's had winnable games, now listen, a lot of these games have been very difficult to win because the SEC West is deep and they played Clemson out of conference. That's been a problem. When Jimbo at Texas A&M has had winnable games, they have done very well. 7-0 against the spread in those instances, that speaks for itself. The number hovering around 11 or so, I think Texas A&M is actually a really strong play here. The truth is Muschamp, who's typically pretty good against the spread, hasn't always been great in these double-digit road spots necessarily, although Georgia fans can cite one instance where that certainly was the case. But I think A&M is a very easy play here, and I think the number strongly supports Texas A&M. So with that in mind, Dart, you want to go with the flow and take the Aggies?
I'm going with the flow. I'm taking the Aggies to cover. A&M's 3 losses this year are to Clemson, Alabama, Auburn. And they've handled everyone else pretty good. They're at home. They're going to control the tempo of this game. I think they're going to easily cover.
Yeah, I do as well, and it's always a little bit sketchy when everybody's as strong about the game as we are right now, but in this particular case, I think the number does back that up. We'll come back to Georgia-Auburn before we're done here on Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews. Want to step out and talk about some other games around the country here for a moment. I do think there's some fun ones here this weekend, including the world's greatest Navy, the Midshipmen, in South Bend, Indiana. A streak of consecutive sellouts dating all the way back to 1973 comes to an end at Notre Dame Stadium here this weekend. The Irish do play, as we have as at about a 9.5-point number. I think the number's actually gone down from there, but we'll call it 9.5 for our purposes here. And Mike Griffith, we'll let you start us off. Historic, I don't want to call it rivalry, but series between these two teams, Notre Dame and Navy. Which side do you want to be on?
Notre Dame, 9.5-point home favorite over the Navy. I think Notre Dame wins this game 30-20 over Ken Niumatalolo and the Midshipmen.
So Mike is an Air Force guy, so I don't know if the Air Force guy is going to take Navy too much there. But Mike does take the Fighting Irish. Jeff Sintel, how about you? What do you want to say?
This is the point in our picks this week where I start thinking, man, we have a lot of volume this week. We have a lot of load management this week for our picks. I like Notre Dame to cover that spread.
Also on the side of Notre Dame, here is Jeff Sintel, Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers. Are they Patriots? not patriotic enough for my taste. 64% go against the U.S. Naval Academy and take the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I cannot support that whatsoever. Connor Riley, what do you think?
So, no sellout, which means fans aren't interested in
Yeah.
this game. It's supposed to be cold, wet, snowy, which doesn't really help, a team like Notre Dame that can't run the ball.
Is it supposed to be that bad of weather?
It's supposed to be a not great weather day up
Pretty
there
fun.
in South Bend, Indiana.
Pretty fun.
9.5 is a lot of points for a very good Navy team, and the last time we saw Notre Dame go against a team that likes to run the ball a whole lot in Michigan in a bad weather game, they got the break speed off of them. And at the end of the day, I love the troops. Support the troops. Navy plus the 9.5 here. Easiest play on the board.
I'm actually really disappointed you're taking Navy because this is what I thought would be one of my contrarian plays that could give me an edge. Let me give you a couple of really good numbers here. In the last 10 meetings between Navy and Notre Dame, the midshipmen have gone 7-3 against the spread in those games. So Navy and Ken Niumatalolo has been there as head coach now for a while, so that a lot of those involve him. They have kind of known that they've sort of known how to keep it close with Notre Dame. However, let me go a step deeper than that, and this may be another one of those sort of numbers of the week that you want to be very well aware of. We're facing a single-digit point spread situation right now where Navy favored by less, or I should say Notre Dame favored by less than double digits. The last two instances in which Navy was a single-digit underdog to Notre Dame, the midshipmen won the game outright. So keep that in mind here. Not only is Notre Dame in trouble of maybe not covering the spread against Navy, I think Navy could be quite a live dog in terms of winning the game outright. That's what history suggests here. So give me Navy as well. That puts the flow, though, still on the side of Notre Dame. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the Irish?
Toot, toot, toot. Toot, toot, toot. Upset alert.
Wow.
Toot, toot, toot. Toot, toot, toot. I am taking Navy. I'm going to take the points. I even think this is worth a money line. This is a dangerous game for Notre Dame. They are on upset alert. Navy has been explosive this year. They've been running through and over everyone. They've been averaging almost 7 yards per rush at about, they're getting over 400-some, 500 yards a game, 44 points per game. Notre Dame is giving up 157 yards on the ground and an average of 4 yards per carry. Navy is just going to run this ball down their throat. So this is a very dangerous game for Notre Dame. I love Navy.
Yeah, see, you're another one, Dari. This was supposed to be my game to be on the opposite side of you and Connor because I need a win. I need a head-to-head win versus you guys, but y'all are too sharp for me. We
can let you change it to Notre Dame.
That's right. Y'all saw the Navy thing coming from a mile away, so good job by both of you. And we'll see over the course of the weekend if the three of us are as right as it seems like we should be. I'm sure you and Connor both feel a little bit nervous about being alongside me, given what a mush I've been thus far on a lot of these picks. But nonetheless, let's stay outside the SEC here for a moment. It is Clemson, hot as of late, and maybe a little hot under the collar there as well after being disrespected a lot this season. Although third in the most recent college football playoff rankings, they host the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Wake, pretty good season thus far, although coming off a loss. Clemson is a 33.5-point favorite, at least according to what we have it here. And we'll start with Mike Griffith. Do you like the Tigers here as a massive, massive home favorite?
Clemson is at home, a 33.5-point favorite over Wake Forest. That's too much. Wake Forest, I think, has 2 losses, I think. Clemson 31, Wake Forest 20.
So he goes underdog here. Boy, Mike has been all over the dogs really all weekend long, which is kind of a fun thing to hear him say. Jeff Sintel, how about you?
I always think about Clemson and Wake Forest, and when I think about that game, I think about, is Wake a 35-point dog or a 40-point dog to the Clemson Tigers? I think they're a 40-point dog. I like that spread. Give me all those points. I take Clemson in a big one.
Yeah, I don't think Jeff's taking an underdog all year long, so kind of nice to have him supporting the favorite there. Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers, 60%. Whoa, look at that. I like the going against the Clemson Tigers here. 60% take Wake plus a gigantic number. Connor, I'd love to see that be true, but that may be wishful thinking on the part of the Dog Nation daily audience. Where you want to go here with what, by ACC standards, is essentially the game of the year?
Yeah, I think Wake's got about as good of a chance in this game as a possessed priest would have against surviving a fight against a tiger in a church. Give me Clemson here, 33.5 points. Don't care. This game could be 50, and I think Clemson's still going to try and cover that number just to say, hey, don't forget about us. We're pretty good.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. I mean, the fact of the matter is Wake 7-2 on the year, so from a by record standpoint, and I believe they're still ranked in the AP poll, I think. But by record, obviously it looks like they're having a pretty good season. They are, however, just 54th in FEI, which is the Football Outsiders efficiency metrics. So let's not get too excited about what Wake Forest is as a team right now. And pretty quietly, after that close call against North Carolina, Clemson's actually been pounding people as of late. They've covered their last 4 against Power 5 competition, and those were big numbers, 35 twice, 24.5, 25.5. So they're covering big numbers, and they're sailing here. I certainly would love the idea of Clemson stubbing its toe because I don't really like, the ease with which they're going to work their way into the college football playoff conversation. I don't think you get it here, though, against Wake Forest. I'm going to take Clemson. That puts the flow on the side of the Tigers. Dar, you want to go with the flow?
I do not. I'm going to take the Demon Deacons and the points.
That's really fun.
I think Wake is going to get in the end zone just enough to stay under those 33 points, and I think they're good enough, just enough.
Well, they are certainly well coached, and that certainly makes for a fun game. I'm actually happy to hear someone make a case for the underdog keeping this one a little bit close. That would certainly make the playoff rankings on Tuesday a little bit more interesting. I'm certainly looking, if Georgia wins at Auburn, my argument's going to be they move up to number 3, so a closer game between Wake Forest would certainly make it a little bit easier to make the argument for Georgia moving up there in that spot, so that'll be fun to watch. Let's go Big Ten here for a moment. Let's go with the flow presented by R.S. Andrews. Check out R.S. Andrews online at rsandrews.com for all your air, heating, plumbing, and electric needs. And, of course, check out Kinnick Stadium in Iowa City. Now, I've been wrong on both sides of Iowa about 1,000,000 times thus far this season, including this past week. They do host in a night game blackout, 3-point favorite, the undefeated Minnesota Golden Gophers, who leapt several spots up in the most recent college football playoff rankings, now sitting at number 8 after a big win last week against Penn State, thrilling the crowd there in Minneapolis. But can they stay hot on the road here in Kinnick Stadium? Mike Griffith, you know the Big Ten, so start us off.
Minnesota, a 3-point favorite on the road at Iowa. I like the Golden Gophers to win this game 20-16, closer than maybe some people would think. Minnesota covers the spread.
So, Mike, another underdog. He takes the Golden Gophers, expecting to see P.J. Fleck row the boat again, this time in Iowa City. Jeff Sintel, how about you?
I was going to feed the ball to those tight ends. Hopefully Theo Johnson will be watching, but Iowa will not be enough for those row the boat Minnesota Golden Gophers. I think America's darling P.J. Fleck covers that spread.
So, Jeff, also on the side of Minnesota there. Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers, how about you? 58% also respect the undefeated mark for the Golden Gophers here. Connor, I know I've been wrong about Iowa a lot. I do think this is still a pretty fun game, though, even though I've really obviously just been hexed by the Hawkeyes this season. You have a strong feeling on this one?
Oh, I feel great about Iowa. I haven't missed on Iowa all season, and I'm going to continue that. Look, I like this Iowa team. They were a little unlucky to lose that game last week against Wisconsin, but they were able to keep it close, like I predicted. I just think at Kinnick Stadium, that's a really tough place to play, especially in the month of November. And, this Minnesota team, I wonder if they're just looking out a little in front of their skis now. They can still, they can still make the playoff even if I think they lose this game, but they obviously have to beat Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. I'm going to, have the kids wave to the hospital. I think Minnesota's going to wave goodbye to their undefeated season. Give me Iowa here with the 3 points.
Yeah, obviously I can't talk about this one too much because of how wrong I've been about Iowa. I'm just going to go with the simple fact that last 6 times Iowa's been favored by a field goal or less. They have won and covered in all those instances. So that's a reason to like Iowa here in this spot. Now, undefeated teams this late in the season as a narrow underdog have typically done pretty well, but I'm going to take the flyer on Iowa here just because of how well they've done recently when being a narrow favorite.
Also, they are playing for the best trophy in all of college
What
sports.
Trophy is this one for?
They're playing for the Floyd of Rosedale. It is the giant pig. That is by far the best trophy in all of college
Did you ever
sports.
figure out the Texas A&M
No.
South Carolina trophy?
No.
Google that if you get a chance. I feel like it's a Davy Crockett thing or something like that, but the Floyd of Rosedale is pretty good. I will go with Connor on that one. Anyway, Dari, the flow here is on the side of Minnesota. We've had a lot of 3-2 splits today. That's always hard for me to keep up with. The flow on the side of Minnesota. Do you want to go with the flow on the undefeated Gophers?
I am going to go with the flow and take Minnesota. Iowa's a good team. They got a brick wall of a defense. They're extremely tough at home, and that's why they're favored in this game to win. However, I'm going to trust the process of Fleck and to keep his team focused to get through this next hurdle. I'm going to take the Gophers straight up on a money line.
Okay, there you go. Boy, I love it when Dari puts his money where his mouth is, and not only just taking the points here, but also going straight up, looking at the Gophers to stay undefeated, which could potentially set up another trophy game at the end of the season for Paul Bunyan's Axe in Minneapolis against Wisconsin to close out the year. So that should be a fun thing to see. All right, we'll get back to Georgia-Auburn here in just a moment. One more game to go before we get there. It is another fun game between an undefeated team who happens to be an underdog here in this spot, Oklahoma at Baylor. On the banks of the Brazos River in Waco, the Bears catching double-digit points. 10 points here, undefeated, completely disrespected by the selection committee on Tuesday night. Mike Griffith, your thoughts?
Baylor at home getting 10 points against Oklahoma. I think Baylor's kind of got that it factor, not really sold on Oklahoma. I take Baylor to win this game outright, 34-30.
So another underdog for Mike. He takes Baylor here. Lots of dogs for him. Jeff Sintel, how about you?
Giving 10 points to Baylor. Now, I think this is going to be something like a 55-45 game. I like Baylor if you give me those 10 points, so I think they beat that.
So Baylor as well for Jeff Sintel. Pretty interesting pick from both of our riders here, liking the undefeated team to keep it close there in Waco. Audience, though, 53%, also on Baylor plus the 10. So didn't exactly expect us to be here, but thus far a clean sweep on the side of Baylor. Connor Riley, what do you think?
I think this is the squarest pick of the week. I think this Oklahoma team is going to start playing like that Clemson team, and that they're angry, they're mad, they feel disrespected. I know their defense stinks, but I think they're going to want to put up a whole lot of points at Oklahoma this week. And Baylor was lucky as all get out, not only to win last week but to cover. Thank you for covering that. You made Connor and my boy P Money some nice cheddar last week, but I think that comes to an end. Give me Oklahoma and the 10 points here.
All right, so if it's the squarest pick of the week, then I guess you're going to call me a square on this because there's one thing I can't quite get over. Connor mentioned the struggles of the Sooners' defense. They are 75th, according to FEI, Football Outsiders Defensive Efficiency Metric. But more important to me than that, Baylor's the number 14 defense. Now, obviously, Oklahoma's the number 2 offense. That's a battle of strength on strength. But keep your mind on this. What happens to Oklahoma recently against better-than-average defenses? The number 4 defense in America last year, Alabama. The number 44 defense in America last year, Texas. The number 4 defense going back to 2017, Georgia. The number 35 defense from that season, Iowa State. Those instances, the last 4 times against better-than-average defenses, Oklahoma was a straight-up loser there in that spot. Did win against the number 6 defense in 2017, Ohio State, but for a good defense, playing at home, catching double-digit points, totally disrespected by the committee despite the fact that Baylor has 2 top 25 road wins right now. I think this is a flyer worth taking. Matt Rule is no patsy as a coach. I don't think he lays down and dies in the spot. I think Baylor is actually worth the look here plus the 10. I'll go with Baylor, and a statement I didn't know we'd be making at the beginning of the year, the flow is with the Baylor Bears. Dar, you want to go with the flow?
I'm going with the flow. I'm going to take the home dog. This should be a fun game to watch. Both of these teams are playing for the Big 12 title. It's even worth a money line play on Baylor because the odds are so great. And this is a perfect scenario where, they could easily win this game at home.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Dari. I think this is actually a really fun game to watch. This is a great stadium. I think the crowd's going to be into it. I think this is a really, really fun game. Let's do one more thing before we get ready to wrap up here. A look back at Georgia-Auburn again. Very low point total, kind of down around 42. Really, it's even probably been bought lower than that by the time you get here. But we're going to go work with it at 42 points, and we will start with Mike Griffith on the over-under for Georgia and Auburn.
The over-under somewhere around 41-42. I'm going to take the over in that game. I think turnovers are going to be a factor, short fields, and again, Georgia wins it in the final seconds on a blankenship field goal.
So Mike is going to go over on this game. Kind of interesting. Jeff Sintel, how about you?
I think it's been dropping a whole lot this week. It's been dropping a lot. I like that to go way under. I see like a 30, 35-point ball game.
Under for Jeff Sintel, easy to understand given the low-scoring games Georgia has played as of late. How about Dog Nation Daily, listeners and viewers? What do you think about the over-under at 42 for Georgia and Auburn? 61% take the over. Obviously, fans like overs, and they like that for Georgia. A little bit surprised that the flow rests with the over as of now, but Connor Riley, I'll let you make your case one way or another.
Georgia has hit the over once against Power
Yeah.
5 opponents this season, and they needed a late defensive touchdown to get that over. Two very good defenses here, two teams that I think the plan for this game is to be, hey, just don't turn it over, play conservative, don't give the other team an advantage. This over-underline, quite frankly, could be at 30, and I'd still probably take the under. Give me the under here. Pretty easy pick.
So in 4 previous meetings for Kirby Smart against Auburn, the under has hit in 3 of those 4 instances, and that's with a total of about 50. We're down 10 points below that. However, the one time it didn't hit was in 2017 when Auburn goes 40 points in its own stadium. That's the only time that Kirby has played Auburn in Jordan-Hare Stadium thus far. I'll totally admit this. This is a contrarian play on the basis of the fact that I got to get back against Connor and Dari here as a part of our season-long competition, but also a little bit of a contrarian play on the idea that everything seems as simple as it looks at face value. Total flyer, total stab in the dark, but a game in which Georgia may have to score a few more points than some people think to win this game on Saturday, especially given Malzahn's history against Kirby. 34 more points 3 of the 7 times he's battled Smart as a defensive mastermind, defensive coordinator, or a defensive-minded head coach. I'm going to take a flyer on the over 42. Sometimes over a low number can make a little sense here. So I'm going to take a shot at this one, Dari. And that actually, I'm surprised, but it puts the flow on the side of the over. Do you want to go with the flow?
I'm going with the flow.
Wow.
I'm taking the over. I think this game, there's going to be some plays made, both sides of the ball. I think there's going to be some points scored. I think it's going to be very similar game flow to Florida. There's going to be a lot of field goals. It's going to be slow, but there's going to be times where there's a couple touchdowns scored. I think it gets kind of in the 20s, and I think it's going to get over that 42.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good play all the way around, Dari, and it should be a great weekend of watching games for both Georgia and Auburn and everything else around college football. And one more time, I'll remind you, when you're sitting around watching these games in the weekend, obviously one of the things that can make that not so much fun if you're getting nagged by your wife, but the fact that your water heater's gone out, there's no hot water flowing out of the shower, or if it's not hot enough, or I should say warm enough in your house because the heat's not working, something like that. If you're facing any of those issues around your house with air, heating, plumbing, electrical issues, our friends at R.S. Andrews are a great way to get that taken care of because they show up on time. They do the work that's promised for the price that's promised. A lot of these fly-by-night companies, you never quite know what you're going to get. With R.S. Andrews, it's always a pleasant experience. They deliver smiles, and they can deliver one for you as well. But you got to check them out online at rsandrews.com. Dari, I hope you enjoyed the games this weekend. We appreciate you being with us, and we'll look forward to chatting with you again next week as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's always a good time. Go Dogs. Run the table.
There you go. That's Dari sign off for us each and every week, and it's always well said. And by the way, as you're saying goodbye to us here as well on Go With The Flow presented by R.S. Andrews, don't forget that a lot of the point spread information we use comes from our friends at MyBookie. And you hear us make your picks, and you think, well, I can make better picks than B.A. can. I'm smarter than he is. Well, a great way to do that is to by proving that, go to Find MyBookie online, simply type MyBookie into your browser, and then use the promo code DOGNATION. When you do, you can be a big winner. Before you even pick the winners of the games, you can get a big first deposit bonus, up to $1,000. You can get your first deposit doubled, but you've got to use the promo code DOGNATION. That's all one word, spelled D-A-W-G. Find MyBookie online, and after that, you play, you win, you get paid. It is as simple as that with our friends at MyBookie, but you've got to use the promo code DOGNATION. All right, y'all enjoy the games this weekend. Appreciate you being with us for Go With The Flow presented by R.S. Andrews, and we'll talk to you again next week at this very same time.